Chapter 38-37. His voice paused slightly as he stared at Immerse and said word by word, "Do you really think that just because you are a puppet, I will forgive you?" Immerse's pupils widened slightly. There seemed to be a flash of light in her extremely dark pupils. Her silvery hair swayed in front of her eyes. That heart-wrenching pain assaulted him again. Immerse was unfamiliar with this kind of feeling. She slowly raised her hand and pressed it on her chest. Her lifeless eyes flickered slightly. Her long eyelashes were also fluttering. Was it heartache? Was this the feeling of heartache? She was also a person with a heart? Immerse fell into her own thoughts. His eyes were wide open, and there was an extreme darkness in them. So dark that the bottom couldn't be seen. This made Xiao Yinyan felt as if he had punched into cotton. Like all the anger only belonged to him alone. The girl in front of him had no reaction at all. This realization made Xiao Yinyan's arms drop to his sides in disappointment. He forcefully shut his eyes. He staggered back a few steps. A self-deprecating chuckle came out from his mouth. Then, he turned around and walked weakly in another direction with weak steps. His back view looked extremely lonely. As if he had lost all his vitality. Was his heart dead? Yiqing Luo's slender brows knitted even tighter. She took a look at Immerse. Seeing Immerse still standing at the same spot, pressing her chest, not knowing what she was thinking, not moving at all. Like a puppet. Yiqing Luo sighed. Others didn't know what Immerse's situation was. As a brother, how could she not know that Immerse had fallen into her own world at this moment? Looking at Xiao Yinyan's lonely and dejected back view, Yiqing Luo finally called out, "Yinyan, wait." The moment she opened her mouth, Xiao Yinyan stopped in his tracks. Even Immerse, who had fallen into her own world, also raised her head. Tilting her head slightly, she stared at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo walked directly to Immerse's side and held her hand. She sighed and said, "I don't know if you've mistaken me for someone else, or if you've misunderstood something. Ever since I met the shadow, she has been like this. There's no such thing as playing dumb, or puppet, that you think she is." Xiao Yinyan's back stiffened. Following that, he turned around abruptly as his dark pupils stared deadly at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo didn't evade as her eyes congealed and seriously met his gaze. After a long while, Xiao Yinyan's eyes gradually dimmed. His thin lips moved, and his voice was a little hoarse. Why is she like this? I don't know. Yiqing Luo shook her head. Ever since I met her, she has been like this. Xiao Yinyan's gaze slowly shifted back to Immerse. He looked at Immerse's expressionless face. Those empty, soulless eyes. And the stiff and completely unnatural way he tilted his head. His heart was in a mess, to tell the truth, when Yiqing Luo started to explain. His heart had already started to believe a little. From the moment he met Immerse, he had sensed her strangeness and unnaturalness. But the hatred and resentment he had towards her made him neglect all these. The current Immerse, but the her in his memory, was indeed very different. The atmosphere gradually turned heavy. No one opened their mouths. After a long while. Chapter 38-38. Everyone had more or less injuries on them. If they stayed any longer, their lives might be in danger. Yiqing Luo took a deep look at Xiao Yinyan and held Immerse's little hand as she returned to Immerse's side. The group of them were just about to leave. A scribe hurried over and whispered something in the ear of the scribe. The historian's face sunk instantly. He raised his hand and stopped the group of people who were about to leave. "Miss Yi, the person you mentioned earlier. The son of the mastermind behind the secluded palace, we didn't see him." The historian asked solemnly, "Think carefully, have you remembered the wrong direction?" When Pei Xing heard this, he became unhappy. The last array, it was because that person called Lord Yu used his blood to activate the array, causing the auction to become like this. There are so many pairs of eyes watching him being sucked dry, how could we remember the wrong direction? The historian's stern gaze looked at Pei Sheng, but, we indeed didn't find the person you mentioned. How could that be possible? Pei Sheng wanted to say something but Yiqing Luo raised her hand, blocking his words. Yiqing Luo frowned as she looked at the historian with a grave expression. You said you didn't find Lord Yu's corpse earlier when the array was broken. Because of her profound grade breakthrough, as well as seeing her old friend, she didn't pay much attention to Lord Yu. Lord Yu's corpse disappeared? Or perhaps Lord Yu actually wasn't dead? Yiqing Luo's eyes turned cold as she suppressed her voice. If Lord Yu has disappeared, someone must have saved him. His injuries are too serious, he definitely can't leave alone. When the historian heard that, he took a look at the historian behind him, Chase. Yiqing Luo completely left the matters of the auction to the historians to investigate and settle. She followed Jun Qinggu and originally wanted to return to the Treasures Exchange Hall to stay. But following that, Qiao family's patriarch rushed over and politely welcomed the group of people to Qiao family's residence. Yiqing Luo looked at Qiao family's patriarch Xiao, whose head was lowered and his silver hair covered half of his face, but she didn't reject Patriarch Qiao's good intentions. She was also very curious. What was going on between Xiao Yinyan and Mo Yuing? The group of people arrived at the Qiao family mansion. Patriarch Qiao arranged a good guest room for them and said, "Have a good rest, everyone." Then, he left the room sensibly. The great battle in the auction. The people outside didn't know. But looking at the auction that had been reduced to ruins, and at least 2/3 of the elite profound practitioners had died, he knew how dangerous the battle was. At this moment, letting them rest was the best choice. Patriarch Xiao had obviously treated Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian as a married couple as he arranged a room for them. After the two of them walked into the guest room, they smelled a faint medicinal fragrance in the air. On the wooden table in the room, there were all kinds of medicine. Moreover, the medicine was of the highest quality. Some were used to treat external injuries, some were used to treat internal injuries, and some were used to replenish physical strength. This Patriarch Xiao has indeed arranged it appropriately. Yiqing Luo picked up a bottle of medicine and shook it in her fingertips. Behind him, however, was a scalding hot body. The man's low and hoarse voice floated down from above. These are not important, the important thing is Lil Luo should fulfill his promise. The man lowered his head slightly. His chin rested on the young lady's fair neck. Warm air sprayed out, making Yiqing Luo's neck to emerge with little goosebumps. Chapter 38-39. Yiqing Luo placed one hand on the back of the man's hand and gently pulled it apart, with the space to move. Yiqing Luo turned around in his arms and faced the man. She raised her head and met with the man's dark obsidian eyes. Deep in his eyes, there was a hint of affection. Just a glance. Yiqing Luo felt her legs go soft. This man's charm, it really made her unable to control herself at all times. Yiqing Luo's curly long eyelashes fluttered as she suppressed the surging, evil thoughts towards Dmo Xian in her heart. Her tender lips curled into a shallow arc as she smiled sweetly at him. Dmo Xian's pupils reflected the young lady's face, which was as beautiful as a flower. His eyes dimmed again. Immediately he exerted force and brought her delicate body into his arms. Then his feet moved. He pressed the young lady's butt against the wooden table. And he lowered his body, one hand hooked Yiqing Luo's waist, the other hand supported on the table. The distance between the two was very close. His breath sprayed, his magnetic and gentle voice was like a soul-stirring tune, very pleasant to listen to. Looks like you have already thought of how to atone for your sins? Yiqing Luo looked at the handsome face in front of her, that pair of shimmering peach blossom eyes, slightly met, like a whirlpool, even the soul seemed to be sucked in, sinking into it. Previously, after breaking the auction's array, she did say personally that she wanted to atone for her rash actions which made him worried. She didn't deny this point. So, the young lady smiled faintly as she raised her head, her hands automatically circled around the man's neck, smiling exceptionally sweetly. So, my dear Xian, are you ready to enjoy my atonement? Her two hands circled around the man. Almost all the strength of her upper body hung on the man's body. The man's body slightly leaned forward. A few strands of black hair fell, falling on Yiqing Luo's face. That peerless, breathtakingly handsome face came closer by a few degrees. And because of this, Yiqing Luo could clearly see, after she finished that sentence. Dmo Xian's pair of shimmering eyes slightly contracted. Yiqing Luo smiled. There was a hint of velvet in his eyes. The corners of her eyes arched upwards, becoming increasingly flirtatious. Yiqing Luo raised her hand slightly and pressed it on Dmo Xian's chest. It was tight and pushed with a little force. She pushed his body a distance away from her. She slid her hands down to the man's shoulders. When doing these movements, her eyes met his from the beginning to the end. Her smile widened. His feet moved. In an instant, the two of them had moved to the side of the bed in the inner room. Dmo Xian shot a glance at the bed behind him and the smile on his thin lips deepened. Lil Luo, is really sincere this time. In order to redeem himself as soon as possible, he even used the secret teleportation technique. Yiqing Luo only laughed. Her long and narrow eyes were overflowing with light, which made her even more enchanting and flirtatious. Dmo Xian's vision fell onto the young lady's fair skin, as smooth as silk, as his gaze turned darker and his voice became hoarse. If those people outside knew that you used the secret teleportation technique in this way, I'm afraid they would shout that it's a waste of God's gift. The secret teleportation technique is mine. How I want to use it, what has it got to do with them? Yiqing Luo's brows rose, as she suddenly exerted force, pressing the man onto the bed. Her silky black hair was scattered on the bed. After the black hair scattered. Chapter 38-40. After Dmo Xian fell, Yiqing Luo's hand was pressed on his chest. She leaned down and gave a mischievous and complacent smile, just like, "You're my man, how I want to sleep with you is my business." The young lady's words were like a feather, scratching Dmo Xian's heart. His eyes were overflowing with joy. His gaze towards Yiqing Luo was even more tender. He was smiling. His smile was magnificent. Yiqing Luo felt that she was about to drown in the man's pampering eyes. She hurriedly retracted her gaze and adjusted her emotions. This man belonged to her. How she wanted to sleep, whenever she wanted to sleep, she could. This person, belonged to her. So, don't wallow in his beauty. Anyway, he belonged to her. Yiqing Luo brainwashed herself in her heart. Just in case she really couldn't control herself and directly pounced on Dmo Xian. She stretched out her hand and tugged at Dmo Xian's belt. The man quickly grasped her hand with his large, broad palm. Yiqing Luo raised her head and looked at him. Dmo Xian's gaze was deep as he held her palm, giving off a scorching heat. Lil Luo, is so proactive, it makes me very surprised. There's someone more proactive at the back. Let go, lie down and enjoy obediently. Yiqing Luo swung her hand, indicating him to let go. The man didn't let go. Yiqing Luo simply used the other hand to tug at the man's belt again. Dmo Xian's eyes flashed past a sliver of helplessness. That gaze, which was mixed with adoration, fixed on the young lady for a few breaths. Eventually he let go of the hand which was holding her. He allowed the young lady to take two-pronged actions, touching him from top to bottom. The man's robe looked simple, but in fact it was very complicated. There were a lot of buckles inside. The young lady was tugging, and as she lost her patience, she directly pulled open the man's collar. With this tug, the buckles immediately fell off. The man's skin and that smooth muscle lines were magnified in Yiqing Luo's eyes. But what attracted Yiqing Luo's gaze was not the man's strong and seductive body, but on the man's shoulder. That patch of greenish black. And there was a trace of 5 fingers. It was as if it was deeply embedded in his flesh. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted as she leaned closer to him. She lifted her soft fingers and placed them on the greenish-black palm print. Her throat was a little dry. Does it hurt? It doesn't hurt. Dmo Xian smiled as he shook his head, as he raised his hand and caught her fingers, covering her little hand in his wide and thick palm. He held her hand, brought it to his lips, and kissed it gently. This injury is nothing. What I'm looking forward to is you taking the initiative to atone for your sins. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as her gaze was still fixated on the greenish-black finger mark on his shoulder. The shy expression on her face was different from before. Instead, there was a faint look of worry. Dmo Xian was about to open his mouth. The little hand that was held in his palm suddenly retracted. Then, he saw the girl jump down from the bed and rush into the outer hall. Lil Luo, Dmo Xian was just about to get up. The girl's figure hurriedly rushed over. In her hands, there were a lot of medicine bottles. She placed the medicine bottles by Dmo Xian's side, and then pressed him down on the bed. Lil Luo, Dmo Xian took a look at those medicines and looked at Yiqing Luo's preparation actions, and knew what she was planning. Yiqing Luo raised her eyelids and took a look at him. Don't you want me to take the initiative to atone for my sins? Then lie down properly. Chapter 38-41. But the atonement I promised you is to apply the medicine for you personally. Yiqing Luo replied decisively, her brows arched. Do you feel that I'm very sincere? Do you feel extremely touched? Dmo Xian's thin lips curled up into an arc, which made him look noble and elegant. You know very well what I want. He continued to stare at her. His gaze was burning, the meaning was clear. Yiqing Luo suddenly pressed her body towards his direction. Dmo Xian's hand, which was holding her, loosened slightly. The young lady had already pushed his hand down, pressing it on the bed. Following that, a warm and soft fingertip pressed on the greenish-black palm print on his shoulder. The cold medicinal powder was sprinkled down. Dmo Xian's shoulder trembled slightly. He lifted his eyes and saw the young lady's flawless face at a close distance. That thick and long eyelashes projected down her eyelids, but it still couldn't cover the young lady's sparkling eyes. He didn't move. He allowed the young lady to apply the medicine for him. Yiqing Luo's actions were very fast. She bandaged Dmo Xian in a few moments. She had just put down the bandage in her hand. Her wrist was held by Dmo Xian. She looked towards Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian smiled. Bandage done, then. What's next? Yiqing Luo looked at the big palm which held her wrist, and then looked at his shoulder. There was no shyness on her face, instead there was some mischievousness. Looking at her expression, Dmo Xian vaguely sensed that something was wrong. He heard the young lady said with a smile, looks like Xian still understands me very well, knowing to take the initiative to request, then I won't stand on ceremony. Saying that, her hands had already landed on his open robe. Gently tugging. The originally loose robe was slid to the two sides. Yiqing Luo lifted both his arms out of his sleeves. Dmo Xian's upper body was completely exposed. Every inch of lines, every inch of muscles, was reflected in Yiqing Luo's eyes. Yiqing Luo swept a glance up and down. After confirming that Dmo Xian's body only had that injury on his shoulder, she then felt relieved. Then she picked up Dmo Xian's robe and threw it on his body, covering up that part of his muscular body which was tempting her to commit. Dmo Xian propped himself up and wrapped an arm around her waist. His chest, which was only separated by a piece of robe, was very close to her delicate body. That's it? He lifted his lower lip, and his voice was filled with laughter. Feeling the heat coming from the man, Yiqing Luo wanted to struggle. Seems like I've stirred up some fire? When he saw the person in his arms, his body stiffened. Dmo Xian couldn't help but curled his lips upwards as his smile deepened. The little fellow was so mischievous. She even dared to tease him. If he didn't teach her a lesson. Perhaps, the little fellow would have to play the same trick again in the future. Play once, this is called fun. If he played it more often. He did not think that he could maintain his self-control in front of her. Thinking like this, the man's eyes darkened. He suddenly flipped over. Yiqing Luo only felt that the world was spinning and her back was pressed against the soft mattress. And above, the man's warm breath was spraying down. Her and Dmo Xian's position had been switched. She blinked her eyes as a layer of crimson finally surfaced on her cheeks. Her little hands lifted up and pressed against the man's chest. But because of Dmo Xian's sudden action, the robe that covered his body had long fallen to the side. Yiqing Luo's hand fell on the man's firm skin. The strong and firm touch brought with it a scalding heat. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but withdrew her hand. Chapter 38:42. This posture was very dangerous. The heat from the man's body said it all. Yiqing Luo tried her best to show an innocent look as she blinked her eyes. She only cared about flirting with men. But she had forgotten that this man in front of her, on the surface, looked like a large puppy. But at some point, he would transform into a wolf dog. The moment he touched her, something happened. Dmo Xian's eyes, which were as deep as a serene lake, looked deeply into Yiqing Luo's eyes. Looking at Yiqing Luo's widened and innocent expression, the corners of his mouth rose unconsciously. His body leaned down a little more. The scorching breath drew closer to the young girl. It was so close that the girl's pupils dilated slightly. Lil Luo, has it been too long since I've used my actions to tell you not to provoke him easily? He chuckled softly. His voice was a little hoarse, and it was very pleasant to hear. His faint magnetism tugged at her heartstrings. Yiqing Luo felt that her heart was almost out of control. Following the man's large palm, he followed the lines of her delicate body, moving up bit by bit. Yiqing Luo's body tensed up even more. The place where his large palm brushed, it trembled slightly. It was like a stream of fire igniting her body and mind. His kiss fell on her. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered as she closed her eyes. But he closed his eyes and remained silent for a long time. There was no man's warm and soft touch on her lips. On the contrary, the ball of warmth on her body also turned over and landed next to her. Yiqing Luo was stunned and slightly dazed. The eyes moved and opened. Dmo Xian's eyes were filled with smiles and the corners of his lips were curled into a teasing arc. That ridiculing smile made Yiqing Luo's cheeks flushed red. You. Was she being flirted with? With a hook of his long arm, he pulled her into his embrace. He laughed softly. I know you're tired. Have a good rest. After a few consecutive battles, in a moment of desperation, he unleashed a power that exceeded what his body could withstand. Then, he broke through again. Anyone would feel physically and mentally exhausted. How could Dmo Xian possibly request Yiqing Luo to satisfy him at this moment? No, he was simply hugging her. They hugged each other and slept together. His heart was already satisfied. Feel the man's scorching love, and for her concern. Yiqing Luo's brows were tainted with a gentle glow. She buried her head in his chest and put one hand on his waist. Just as he closed his eyes, his heart filled with happiness. Dmo Xian's magnetic and mellow voice rang in her ears. When I'm well rested, I'll be waiting for your atonement. Yiqing Luo, feeling the girl in his arms stiffen, he smiled and said, Don't forget what I said before. If you start a fire, you have to be responsible for extinguishing it. Yiqing Luo, could this joke ever get over it? His body and mind were indeed exhausted. This rest. He rested until the next morning. By the time Yiqing Luo opened her eyes, the man was no longer by her side. He reached out to touch the side of his body. It was cold, which meant that he had been awake for a long time. She sat up straight and saw the bandage hanging on the side. It seemed that Dmo Xian had changed the medicine himself. She rubbed her face. Only by Dmo Xian sighed. She slept like a log. She didn't even notice that Dmo Xian had woken up and left. Yiqing Luo got up and changed into a new set of clothes from the profound phoenix ring. After washing up, she walked out of the room. The room that Patriarch Xiao had arranged for her and Dmo Xian was the quietest. When she walked out of the courtyard. Chapter 38-43. Kitty Li smelled Yiqing Luo's scent and was the first to jump up and pounce towards her. Sister. Yiqing Luo hugged her. The few of them also looked towards Yiqing Luo. Have you recovered? Jun Qingwu looked at Yiqing Luo from head to toe. Yiqing Luo nodded. After a nap, my body and mind are relaxed. TSK. That's because you don't know what the Overlord did for you after you fell asleep. Zhou Mo's sloppy voice was heard. What did this mean? Zhou Mo rubbed his chin and gave a playful smile. Your Overlord, after you fell asleep, gave you a full body check. His voice dragged on with a hint of mockery. Jun Qingwu directly threw the teacup in her hand towards Zhou Mo. Zhou Mo raised his palm and split the teacup open. Don't say it's so dirty. Jun Qingwu shot a glance at him and then looked at Yiqing Luo as she explained. The Overlord said that you had expended too much energy in the array. Even if you managed to grab hold of the opportunity to break through, the energy after the breakthrough had enriched your body and mind, but the energy that erupted earlier had still affected your body. She paused and continued, so after you fell asleep, the Overlord used some herbs to make incense to help you relieve the fatigue and replenish the energy in your body. Yiqing Luo was stunned. Wasn't he injured? No wonder, after she woke up. She felt that her body and mind were comfortable and light like a swallow. Initially she thought that this was the reaction after a night's rest after the breakthrough. She didn't expect. It was Xian He. Didn't he need to rest at all? The Overlord knows his limits, even if it's for you, he won't tire himself out. Jun Qingwu comforted her. Then where did he go now? Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes. That fool, silently waiting for her to fall asleep, for the sake of her body. But completely disregarding herself. He was injured and didn't even know how to rest properly. This man, when he started to pamper others, it made one's legs go soft. Kitty Li snuggled into her arms and said, Overlord brother-in-law heard from Sister Zishi that there is a stock of medicinal herb that is especially helpful to you at the West Cliff Mountain, so I followed her to pick it. Yiqing Luo's lips suddenly pursed tightly. Dizun knows his limits. Don't worry. Jun Qingwu saw Yiqing Luo's expression change and immediately held her arm, bringing her to the stone bench. I am angry. Yiqing Luo's eyes were slightly sunken, so sunken that it turned black. He's worried about me, I'll also be worried about him, I'm still injured and still running around. She pursed her lips even tighter as she spoke. Then, he broke free from Jun Qingwu's grasp. No, I have to go to the Western Cliff Mountain to look for him. Dizun has been gone for some time. Even if you go there now, you might not be able to find him. Jun Qingwu hurriedly hugged her. If you're angry, just wait for him to come back. Can't you just vent it on him? Yiqing Luo halted her footsteps. Jun Qingwu's words made sense. The West Cliff Mountain was huge. She went in search. Perhaps Dmo Xian was already on his way back. Yiqing Luo dispelled the idea of going to West Cliff Mountain and recalled what Kitty Li said earlier. Earlier you said. Zishi? Is she awake? In the spirit-devouring array, Gu Zishi was affected by the array and had fallen into a coma. Yiqing Luo guessed that she would probably wake up soon. Later on, the auction event happened. Hearing the news that Gu Zishi had already woken up, Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 38-44. Kitty Li replied with an N and immediately pouted her lips as she mumbled, Sister has only been separated from Kitty for a month and already got to know so many friends. If Kitty Li didn't find Sister in time, would Sister forget about Kitty Li? The little girl's voice was filled with grievance. As though she was fighting for favor, her little head was raised up high to look at her. Yiqing Luo rubbed Kitty Li's furry little head as she laughed softly. I can forget anyone but Kitty Li. My friends are Kitty Li's friends. Kitty Li's face finally revealed a smile after her fur was smoothed. She had just finished smoothing Kitty Li's fur. Suddenly a little head came into her arms. In front of her was Mo Yuying's tender figure and that adorable Lolita's expressionless face. Yiqing Luo was stunned. Mo Yuying put her head under Yiqing Luo's palm as she spat out a word stiffly, touch. Alright, this was a fight for favor. Looking at the two kids in front of her, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but laugh. Then, he raised his hand and rubbed the heads of each of them. Mo Yuying's stiff lips curled upwards. His smile was stiff and unnatural when compared to his expressionless face. Yiqing Luo pinched Mo Yuying's face as her fingers landed on her raised lips. Shadow can smile more. Mo Yuying tilted her head as her dense long eyelashes blinked and nodded, N. Just as she was saying that, Yiqing Luo acutely felt a scorching gaze falling on her. She immediately looked over. She saw a slender figure standing at the entrance of the courtyard. Silver hair and black robe. The gentle breeze made the desolation on the man's body even more obvious. It was Qiao Yinyan. He was looking at her without blinking. No. More accurately, his attention was still on Mo Yuying. Only occasionally, a glance. Which made Yiqing Luo couldn't help but pay attention to it. When she looked over, Qiao Yinyan also raised his eyes and met her gaze. Yiqing Luo understood. She whispered something to Mo Yuying and Kitty Li. Then she walked towards Qiao Yinyan. Do you have time? I want to talk to you. Qiao Yinyan looked at her, his eyes dark and heavy. Yiqing Luo understood his meaning as she nodded her head. Following closely behind him, the two of them walked out of the courtyard. Qiao Yinyan walked in front. His slender figure looked extremely lonely from the back. It was as if some darkness had covered his radiance. His entire person was very dispirited. Looking at his back view, Yiqing Luo sighed and took the initiative to open her mouth. You're looking for me, to ask about the matters regarding Shadow, right? Qiao Yinyan's footsteps suddenly halted. Yiqing Luo was very close. It could be seen that his body under the black robe had tensed up. As expected, it was because of Mo Yuying. Mentioning Mo Yuying, his reaction was huge. Mo Yuying, was she really like this from the beginning? He didn't turn around, but from his voice, one could tell how confused and apprehensive he was. Yiqing Luo looked at his back view for a long time and didn't reply. Then she walked slowly to him, looked into his eyes and said word by word, whether it's true or not, from the moment you came to ask me, you already have the answer in your heart, isn't it? Qiao Yinyan's pupils contracted slightly. Chapter 38-45. Qiao Yinyan's eyes flashed past a gloomy glint. He clenched his fists as his expression turned cold. Looking at his expression, Yiqing Luo raised her brows slightly as she pursed her lips slightly, revealing a hint of coldness. You should be able to tell that Shadow's current condition is not that of a normal person. Indeed. From the first time she met Mo Yuying, Yiqing Luo felt strange. But she heard from Long Yunzhan and the rest that Mo Yuying had always been like this. So she dispelled her intention to probe further. But now that she saw Qiao Yinyan, and thinking back to what Qiao Yinyan had said earlier, Qiao Yinyan felt that Mo Yuying's current look was an act. Which meant, he had met Mo Yuying, and it was the other side of Mo Yuying. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyelids slightly. That girl who looked like a little Lolita had an expressionless face. Especially those big, round eyes. They were so beautiful, but they were empty and devoid of life. Every word and action, every action. They were like puppets that were being manipulated by strings. If it was the previous Mo Yuying, she wasn't like this, which meant that there must be a reason why Mo Yuying became like this. Qiao Yinyan's breathing became hurried. He raised his head abruptly as his eyes stared at Yiqing Luo. That gaze seemed to be urging her to continue speaking. Yiqing Luo was extremely curious about what had happened between Xiao Yinyan and Mo Yuing. Moreover, she could tell Xiao Yinyan had deep feelings for Mo Yuing. She was basically certain. The woman in Xiao Yinyan's heart that Gue Wu mentioned earlier was undoubtedly Mo Yuing. Yiqing Luo thought about it and told Xiao Yinyan about the strange parts. During the world-destroying battle in the Nirvana realm, the secluded palace had targeted Mo Yuying's soul. From the Godless Island, they had obtained a pitch-black dagger that targeted Mo Yuing. After that, the period when Mo Yuing was unconscious. Her face, and her eyes, all had more of a human radiance. At that time, Mo Yuing really looked like a normal person. But after that, she reverted back to that stiff puppet look. After Yiqing Luo finished speaking about these things, the more Xiao Yinyan listened, the deeper his frown became. In the end, his eyes were burning. Seeing Xiao Yinyan's expression, Yiqing Luo was almost certain. No matter what happened between Xiao Yinyan and Mo Yuing in the past, it didn't matter how angry Xiao Yinyan was when he saw Mo Yuing. In the end, he still had deep feelings for Mo Yuing. No matter how Xiao Yinyan tried to refute it, it was the truth. Speaking of this, she was also very curious about something. Since you've always had Mo Yuing in your heart, then why, when you first met me, your attitude towards me was so? Yiqing Luo deliberated over her words and finally used 2 words to describe it. So ambiguous? It was indeed very ambiguous. Xiao Yinyan's attitude towards her. No matter who came to see it, they would all misunderstand, right? When she went to the Qiao mansion, Patriarch Xiao's eyes were shining as he looked at her. Clearly, she had misunderstood Xiao Yinyan's attitude towards her. Not to mention others. Even she had her doubts several times. If it wasn't for the fact that she felt that Xiao Yinyan's attention towards her didn't seem to be the kind of love between a man and a woman. She wanted to have an open and honest talk with Xiao Yinyan, while she was silently cursing in her heart. Chapter 38-46. Don't tell me. It's really because of what Gue Wu said. After Yiqing Luo finished her words, she clicked her tongue as her face was filled with a teasing smile. So the reason why you treated me so well right from the start was because Teacher Gue Yu requested you to take care of me. Xiao Yinyan's expression froze. Not only his face, even the muscles on his body froze up. Following that, his flustered gaze evaded Yiqing Luo's line of sight as he lifted his leg and walked forward. That flustered look made him look like he had a guilty conscience. Yiqing Luo looked at his hurried back view as she couldn't help but laugh out loud. It seemed that her guess was not far from the truth. Xiao Yinyan took such good care of her. It was because of Gue Yu's advance greeting. This also explained why Patriarch Xiao was so passionate when he saw her. It must be Gue Yu, that old urchin, who intentionally said something to make Patriarch Xiao misunderstand, causing Patriarch Xiao to mistakenly think that she would become Qiao family's future daughter-in-law. Amen. Most importantly, Gue Yu seemed to have used Mo Yuying's name to greet Xiao Yinyan. That meant to say, Xiao Yinyan had always known that Mo Yuing was in Nirvana realm. He had been secretly paying attention to Mo Yuing. Then why? How could he not know about the changes in Mo Yuing? What had happened to Mo Yuing, which caused her to become like this? These questions looked like she could only ask Teacher Gue Yu after they met before she could find out. After Xiao Yinyan left, Yiqing Luo returned to the courtyard. Zhou Mo's brows rose as he asked smilingly, "That lad looked for you, is it to ask about Shadow?" Yiqing Luo nodded as her gaze fell onto Shadow. Mo Yuing tilted her head as she blinked. "Me?" Yiqing Luo waved at her. Mo Yuing immediately ran into Yiqing Luo's arms as she raised her exquisite and adorable face as she looked at her. Yiqing Luo touched her head. "Shadow doesn't remember that man at all?" "Xiao Yinyan." Mo Yuing mumbled this name. "Why should I remember him?" Yiqing Luo saw that she had even remembered Xiao Yinyan's name and raised her slender brows as she asked with a smile, Looks like Shadow's impression of Yin Yen is rather deep. Because he always stares at me with a very annoying gaze. Mo Yuying's answer was very straightforward. Looking at Mo Yuying's expressionless face, Yiqing Luo rejoiced that she had scared Xiao Yin away earlier. Otherwise, how painful would it be for him to hear this sentence? Shadow, let me ask you a question. Yiqing Luo placed both her hands on Mo Yuying's shoulders and slightly bent down to meet her gaze. Mo Yuying blinked her eyes. Her empty and lifeless eyes were extremely black. In your memory, have you lost a certain period of memory? Yiqing Luo asked seriously. Mo Yuying blinked her empty eyes again. Do you think that I have forgotten about Xiao Yinyan? Yiqing Luo nodded calmly. Yes, so, you really don't remember him, right? I don't have his memory. Mo Yuying shook her head stiffly. As for whether or not I lost my memory, I don't know. You don't know? This sentence made Yiqing Luo extremely surprised. Mo Yuying replied, my memory is very chaotic and I can't remember if I have lost any memory. But I really don't know Xiao Yinyan. How could a normal person's memory be chaotic? Chapter 38-47. Looks like, Mo Yuying would become a puppet without a soul. There had to be a reason. Moreover, this reason might be related to Mo Yuying's chaotic memories. If you want to clarify your relationship with Yin Yan, after you return to Nirvana Realm, you can look for Teacher Gue Yu and ask him, he should know something. Yiqing Luo left the choice to herself. Mo Yuying didn't reply and just stared at him with her lifeless eyes. No one knew what she was thinking. At this moment, Qiao family's housekeeper came over to invite Yiqing Luo and the rest to head to the main hall for their meal. This was the Qiao family's territory. The news of her waking up and Xiao Yinyan walking out of the courtyard would definitely reach Patriarch Qiao's ears very quickly. Family head Qiao's actions were quite fast. Yiqing Luo thought about it and accepted the invitation. If she were to wait for Dmo Xian to return, her imagination would run wild and she would be restless. Go to the main hall. It's more lively there, and it can also divert some attention. Anyway, when Dmo Xian returned, they could just grab anyone to ask and they would know where he was. The group followed the butler to the main hall of the Qiao family. Indeed, as Yiqing Luo had expected. A small banquet was set up in the main hall of the Qiao family. The long tables on both sides were filled with guests. Yiqing Luo gauged with her eyes. There were about 40 of them. When he saw Yiqing Luo and her entourage walking over, those people immediately stood up and respectfully cupped their hands towards them with smiles on their faces. Madam D. Madam D. Madam D. Various voices affectionately called out to Yiqing Luo. The smile on his face, the respect in his tone. There was a hint of flattery that was hard to detect. Patriarch Qiao immediately went forward to welcome them. Lady Yi, Lady D, come, this way please, this way please. Yiqing Luo looked around. In the main seat of the main hall was a rectangular table. He counted the seats. It just so happened to be their position. Yiqing Luo didn't stand on ceremony with them as she walked directly to the main seat and sat down. TSK. What kind of formation is this? Zhou Mo muttered softly. Yiqing Luo shot a glance at Zhou Mo as her lips curled into a faint smile. These people are from various large powerhouses in the Earth domain. He had just looked around. There were many familiar faces present. They were all profound practitioners who had survived the auction. Ever since Patriarch Xiao sent the butler to invite them. Yiqing Luo could roughly guess that the purpose of the invitation was probably to discuss about the auction. However, inviting so many people was beyond her expectations. Imperial Madam, please forgive me for taking the liberty to let these friends in. Qiao family head's temper had changed, and he seemed to be very calm. But the expression he shot towards Yiqing Luo had betrayed his inner thoughts. Patriarch Qiao stared at her with a fiery gaze. From time to time, he would glance at his son, who was sitting quietly beside him. Clearly, he had not given up on the idea of pairing her up with Xiao Yinyan. Yiqing Luo glanced at Immerse from the corner of her eyes and then smiled as she shook her head. This is the Qiao residence. Whoever the Qiao family wants to receive is the Qiao family's right. Patriarch Qiao's smile froze. The smiles on the faces of the profound practitioners from the various great forces also froze. Since they came to the Qiao residence, their intentions were already very clear. Was Yiqing Luo pretending not to understand, or did she really not understand? The atmosphere in the main hall was tense. Chapter 38-48. Qiao family's patriarch broke the deadlock. Various powerhouses' cultivators naturally wouldn't continue to put on a stiff expression and make the atmosphere so stiff. One by one, they raised their wine cups and respectfully toasted towards Yiqing Luo's direction as they expressed their gratitude. To these cultivators, Yiqing Luo wasn't disgusted, but they were definitely not the same kind of people. But as the saying goes, don't slap a smiling face. These powerful cultivators from various powerhouses who were usually high up on the top were now putting on a smiling face to a junior like her. Yiqing Luo wouldn't really rub her nose in front of them as her performance was too cold. To tell the truth, Yiqing Luo herself was very clear. The main reason why these people were so polite to her was not because she had broken the auction's array, allowing everyone to survive, but because of Dmo Xian. She clearly saw that when she and the group of people entered the main hall, quite a number of gazes were wandering around her, searching for him. Yiqing Luo understood everyone's thoughts. After all, the strong were revered. Everyone respected Dmo Xian, and she was rather proud. Her lips curled slightly, her smile was distant, not easy to get close to, but she wasn't rude. There's no need to thank me. The reason why I worked so hard is not just because of you. She stood up and downed the wine in her cup in one gulp as she continued. If the array is not broken, all of us will die in the array, so I'm doing it for myself. Although that's the case, but Imperial Madam fought with the Palace of Darkness and almost lost her life. She even used her own blood to test the array and broke the array. These are all indisputable facts. One of the powerhouses who was seated in front cupped his fists and said, "Everything that Imperial Madam has done to break the array, we will remember it in our hearts and express our deep gratitude." Another cultivator continued. Immediately, there were other cultivators who started to praise her. The main hall instantly became noisy. Yiqing Luo immediately raised her hand to stop everyone's bootlicking. Her smile remained unchanged and the expression on her face didn't change at all. "Thank you for your kindness. During the auction, I actually made it very clear that the reason why I risked my life was because I didn't want Palace of Darkness's evil plan to succeed. If you really want to thank me, then use your power to find the hidden forces of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Start this war with the Palace of Gloomy Darkness and win. That's enough." Yiqing Luo's words made everyone's voices of thanks to stop abruptly. They all looked at each other. Regarding what the Abyss Palace had done, many forces had already put the Abyss Palace on their blacklist. After all, the other party was bullying him. If they didn't take some action, they would definitely be killed. Wouldn't the other party think that they were easy to bully? This point, even if Yiqing Luo didn't mention it, they would also investigate the power of the Palace of Darkness. Their losses this time could be said to be half of the wings of the entire land. How could they let go of the Netherworld Palace? From the burning rage in everyone's eyes, Yiqing Luo could tell what they were thinking. If the people of the land domain were willing to investigate the Palace of Darkness, no matter how deep the Palace of Gloomy Darkness hid, he would eventually reveal his fox tail. Currently, Yiqing Luo wasn't worried that the secluded Darkness Palace would take advantage of the fact that the Earth Realm's vitality was severely damaged to swallow the Earth Realm. The commotion caused by the auction was too big. This had already attracted the attention of the Historian of Balance. Chapter 38-49. If Secluded Palace were to take action now, it would definitely attract the attention of the higher realms people. By then, whatever plans Secluded Palace wanted to carry out would definitely be difficult. What Imperial Madam said is right. Our three cities' common enemy is Secluded Palace. Our forces have suffered heavy losses because of Secluded Palace, so we must take revenge for this. Imperial Madam, don't worry. Even if you don't mention it, we will not let Secluded Palace off. That's right. I am absolutely irreconcilable with Secluded Palace. Everyone clenched their fists, venting their anger and hatred towards Secluded Palace. Yi Qing Luo didn't continue exchanging pleasantries with them and inciting them. Secluded Palace's method in the auction. They had completely lost the hearts of the people in the Earth domain. Even now, when Secluded Palace wanted to recruit people in the Earth domain, no one would go over. Those who joined Secluded Palace in the auction, each and every one of them, died much worse than the others. Those who joined, those who wanted to betray, turned into blood mist and had their souls scattered. Those who didn't want to betray, were directly killed by those monsters in Secluded Palace who couldn't differentiate between friend and foe. It was simply insane to the extreme. Whoever wanted to join Secluded Palace was simply looking for death. Yi Qing Luo looked at everyone's infuriated looks as she slowly sat down. Her expression was still somewhat solemn. Suddenly, a fair and slender hand stretched out in front of her. Her jade-white fingers held a wine cup. The wine was swaying in the cup. Jun Xingwu's cold voice was heard by her ear, "Have a drink?" Yi Qing Luo glanced sideways and met Jun Xingwu's cold expression. She smiled as she poured herself a full cup of wine, raised the wine cup and clinked it with hers. The two of them didn't say anything as they raised their heads at the same time and downed the wine in one gulp. When they put down the wine cup, Jun Qingwu propped her chin as her brows rose slightly as she looked at her indifferently. Why? Still thinking about Secluded Palace? Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased tightly. I don't understand. Why did Secluded Palace take such a huge risk to take action during the auction? She paused slightly and suddenly thought of something as she turned her body sideways to look at Jun Qingwu. During this period of time, have you found out any news about the mastermind of Secluded Palace? Jun Qingwu's expression darkened when she mentioned this point. She shook her head. The Palace of Gloomy Darkness is very cunning. The real mastermind is hidden too well. Currently, the only information we know is that that person is definitely someone with a high position in the heaven realm. Or, it might be related to the God realm. Divine realm? Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips slightly. In the upper realm. Is there really a God realm? Although the three realms of the Heaven-Earth God realm were collectively known as the Upper Three Realms. But what Yi Qing Luo heard were mostly from the Earth realm and Heaven realm. There were very, very few rumors about the God realm. It was said that after the Divine Emperor passed away 10,000 years ago, the Divine World gradually disappeared from everyone's sight. Now, although there were still many legends in the Divine World, there were also people who said that Dmo Xian came from the Divine Realm. However, it was impossible to ascertain whether the God realm still had true godlike existences. Chapter 3850. The Palace Lord of the Nether Palace on the Surface. In Yi Qing Luo's mind, an image of a black-robed figure with a black cloak covering his entire face appeared. Towards that Palace Lord of the Nether Palace. Yi Qing Luo's memory was still very deep. What made her most unforgettable was that Palace Lord's gaze towards her. Very strange. Very familiar. However, she was unable to recall where that sense of familiarity came from. Furthermore, that Palace Lord's actions made her puzzled and puzzled. Most importantly, she was sealed in the palace which was filled with evil qi by the real mastermind. It was also that Palace Lord who told Dmo Xian the correct location of the palace, which allowed Dmo Xian to find her in time. Who was the Palace Lord of the Nether Palace on the surface? Have you thought of any clues? Jun Qingwu saw Yi Qing Luo's grave expression and that half-squinted eyes, reflecting a piercingly cold ray. Yi Qing Luo regained her senses and met with Jun Qingwu's gaze which seemed to know everything. She was slightly stunned as she shook her head. Nothing. Jun Qingwu only took a deep look at her and didn't continue to ask. Yi Qing Luo's eyelids drooped as her eyes turned deep and her slightly cold voice was piercingly cold. Nether Palace. Sooner or later I will personally destroy it. The two of them were discussing in a low voice. Various powerhouses cultivators had already expressed their attitude. They had set a common goal: to deal with the Nether Palace. After that, under Patriarch Xiao's instructions, they started to eat and drink. Many powerhouses cultivators tried to find all sorts of topics to talk to Yi Qing Luo. But Yi Qing Luo's attitude was very calm. Alienated, but there was nothing wrong with it. She said that she was high and mighty, totally looking down on them. But Yi Qing Luo's tone and attitude towards them was still considered polite. She said that she wanted to get to know them, to have more friends and more paths. But Yi Qing Luo's attitude was extremely alienated, with no intention to continue to develop a future with them. This made everyone feel strange and at the same time unable to get on her good side. They were stuck here, neither up nor down, which was indeed uncomfortable. Just like this, it continued for about 2 incense sticks worth of time. Suddenly, a howl was heard from outside the main hall. Hey hey hey. Why are you dragging me? Who are you? What do you want? That howl was quite tragic. Then, the orderly voices of the Qiao family's guards could be heard. But it couldn't stop the howl from getting closer. Everyone in the main hall heard this voice. Patriarch Xiao stood up first and was about to rush out. Soon after, a black shadow was thrown into the main hall. Patriarch Xiao subconsciously raised his hand and slashed over. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were sharp, and when she saw that black shadow being thrown over, her eyes changed. The glower flame fan in her hands moved and a hurricane was formed, sweeping the black shadow towards her. Qiao family's head slashed the air and saw the direction where the black shadow turned. Just as he was about to ask Yi Qing Luo, the black figure that was thrown and rolled on the ground a few times. Then, holding onto his waist, he climbed up while shouting, "Ouch!" He wore a green robe, and his hair was a little messy due to the torment. He raised his hand and rubbed his face that was hurt from the fall. His handsome face was very upright. The most eye-catching thing was that pair of dark golden eyes, sparkling with a brilliant luster which made one unable to shift their gaze away. "Pay, boss, pay." After seeing that black shadow's face clearly, Patriarch Qiao was stunned. Chapter 38:51. What on earth was going on? Pei Xing rubbed his own face and was still drawing in cold air from the pain. As he touched his ears, he stood up and cried out to Yi Qing Luo, "Ah Luo, save me. There's a crazy old man who kept dragging me to look for you, it hurts so much." Yi Qing Luo noticed that his face and ears had turned red from the pinching. Before she could say a word. Immediately following that, a gush of horrifying aura gushed into the main hall's main door. The surrounding pressure instantly dropped to the lowest point. Many cultivators' expressions turned gloomy as they held on to their weapons alertly as their sharp eyes stared sharply at the main hall's main door. Could it be that the secluded palace had made a comeback? Thinking of this, everyone became even more alert. Even the aura on his body had become much more powerful. Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she immediately stood up and crossed the long table, pulling Pei Xing behind her as she straightened her back and looked towards the main door. Pei Xing said. There was an old man looking for her? He specifically mentioned her name to look for her? Who could it be? The aura in the main hall surged even more ferociously. Wave after wave of airwaves. Yi Qing Luo felt that the surrounding air seemed to have congealed. Just at this moment, a figure hurried over from the door and entered. Just in a blink of an eye. That figure had already appeared in the middle of the main hall. He stood face to face with Yi Qing Luo. The distance between the two of them was not more than 10 steps. That was a white-haired old man dressed in brocade robes, but he had a dignified demeanor. His entire body was in flames. The minute he appeared, he gave everyone a huge sense of oppression. The profound practitioners of the various major forces immediately felt a great pressure bearing down on them. It was as if their bodies were being pressed to the ground by an invisible force. This kind of feeling. Yi Qing Luo was also affected. Her slender brows creased as she met the old man's sharp and imposing eyes. "Who are you?" She opened her mouth and asked coldly. The old man's gaze was fixed on Yi Qing Luo, as though he was inspecting some goods as he sized Yi Qing Luo up. Following that, his brows creased tightly, as though he was despising her. Yi Qing Luo. 1. Face. Stunned. Force. Who on earth was this old man? What was with that look of disdain? "You are Yi Qing Luo?" the old man asked calmly. Yi Qing Luo realized that this old man might not be from the Earth domain. She didn't answer and just looked at him warily. The old man saw that Yi Qing Luo was ignoring him. He stared fiercely at Pei Xing as he shouted sternly, "The Yi Qing Luo you mentioned, is it this woman?" Pei Xing was hollered at and his entire body shrank behind Yi Qing Luo. At the same time, he touched his ears. "How can a man like you hide behind a woman's back? Our Huangfu clan doesn't have a man like you." When the old man saw Pei Xing's actions, he couldn't help but frown and shout at him sternly. Yi Qing Luo caught onto a crucial point. Huangfu clan? This old man, someone from the Huangfu clan? In other words, people from the heaven realm? This Huangfu family, wasn't it one of the heaven realm's 4 great families, Qiao Jin's family? Why would he come to the land? It seemed like the target was still looking for her. Yi Qing Luo expressed that she was in a daze. "You are from the Huangfu family?" The old man glanced coldly at Yi Qing Luo and shifted his gaze onto Pei Xing who was behind her. "Stand upright and upright." Pei Xing was so scared that he quivered. He immediately stood out from behind Yi Qing Luo. And he even stood up straight. After he stood up, he then realized what he had done. Chapter 38-52. This old man. What did he mean by that? Not only Yi Qing Luo was stunned. The surrounding cultivators from various powerhouses were all stunned as well. All of them stared at the old man in unison, guessing his intention for coming. In the old man's eyes, it seemed as though he couldn't see anyone else. After seeing Pei Xing stand up straight, that solemn and heavy expression on his face eased up a little. But the gaze which he shot towards Pei Xing was still that little bit of disdain and displeasure. But this disdain, as compared to the disdain which Yi Qing Luo saw in the old man's eyes, was absolutely not the same kind of emotion. So, how much did this old man despise her? Just as she was thinking, that old man's vision shifted onto Yi Qing Luo. Following that, his white brows creased as he raised his chin and opened his mouth. "Yi Qing Luo, I heard that. You're the one who saved this lad, and even activated this lad's concealed Huangfu bloodline." Yi Qing Luo controlled herself, ignoring the old man's arrogant tone. From the old man's aura, if they were to fight, she might be at a disadvantage. Furthermore, what did that old man say earlier? Activated Huangfu bloodline? Huangfu. Yi Qing Luo suddenly recalled Xiao Jin's pair of golden eyes. Wait a minute. She recalled it. Huangfu family. Their unique point was, Huangfu family's people's eyes were all golden. Right. Golden. She finally recalled, when she saw Pei Xing's outburst, his eyes flashed a dark golden glow. And where did that familiar feeling come from? Because previously, Qiao Jin's eyes had also turned golden. But the color of Pei Xing's eyes was very different from Qiao Jin's golden color. It was also different from the usual color of Huangfu family's eyes. If she didn't remember wrongly, those Huangfu family's people, other than Xiao Jin who the Huangfu family had recognized as the successor, all the younger generation only had one golden eye. One gold, one ink. But Pei Xing's eye color. Not only was it that kind of dark golden color, but both eyes revealed a dark golden glow. But this old man in front of her said, Pei Xing's Huangfu bloodline had been activated? What was going on? Looking at Yi Qing Luo's puzzled expression, the displeasure and disdain on the old man's face became even more obvious. He walked towards Yi Qing Luo in big strides. His footsteps were steady and his footsteps brought along the wind. His imposing manner was overbearing. As he approached, Yi Qing Luo didn't evade. Instead, he frowned and met the old man's gaze. Then, he stared into the old man's eyes, searching for traces of gold. Facing Yi Qing Luo's piercing gaze, the old man's brows furrowed even tighter, and he shouted sternly, "Little girl, I'm asking you a question." This voice was mixed with Xian energy. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but dig her buzzing ears. "I don't even know who you are. Why should I answer a stranger's question?" The old man's face darkened. Apparently he had never met someone like Yi Qing Luo who wasn't afraid of his prestige and was so rude to him. His eyes stared intently at Yi Qing Luo. His sharp eyes occasionally flashed with a golden luster. Yi Qing Luo caught it. Indeed, someone from the Huangfu family. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as she shot a glance at Pei Xing's direction, and continued to speak. "You specially came over from Heaven Realm, because you sense Pei Xing's Huangfu bloodline, and wanted to bring him back?" Chapter 38-53. As he spoke, he looked at the old man again, and, "Who on earth are you? The minute you saw me, you dragged me here and clamored to look for Ah Luo. What's going on?" Hearing Pei Xing's words, the old man frowned. "You don't even know your own identity?" "Me?" Pei Xing was even more confused. "What identity? What are you guys talking about?" The old man's face turned even darker. Yi Qing Luo raised her hand and stopped Pei Xing from asking any further questions as she directly opened her mouth. Ah Xing had grown up in the Earth Realm since young and his parents are from the Earth Realm. If he's really from the Huangfu family, then you shouldn't be asking him but your Huangfu family yourself. Why on earth did you allow Ah Xing to wander around in the Earth Realm? Being criticized by a junior, the old man couldn't keep his face. His face sunk as he shouted angrily, "I will investigate this matter clearly. I don't need you to point fingers." "So, you want to bring Ah Xing to the Heaven Realm?" Yi Qing Luo asked. Yi Qing Luo and the old man's exchange. His words entered the ears of all the profound practitioners of the major forces. That was to set off a huge wave. Heaven Realm? This master, is he from the Heaven Realm? Didn't you hear, the Imperial Madam said. Huangfu family. Huangfu family? One of the 4 heavenly families in the Heaven Realm? Other than the Huangfu family, which is one of the 4 heavenly families, is there a second Huangfu family? Why would the Huangfu family from the Heaven Realm come to the Earth Realm? And those cultivators in Without Embroiling City heard that Yi Qing Luo wanted to ask about the Huangfu family and bring Pei Xing to the Heaven Realm. They were even more shocked. What was the relationship between Pei Xing and the Huangfu family? Why did it sound like Pei Xing was from the Huangfu family? This piece of heavy news, one after another, made everyone dumbfounded. The surrounding people's discussion made Pei Xing nervous. His eyeballs rolled, looking at the old man and Yi Qing Luo from time to time. He had a stomach full of questions to ask. But looking at the atmosphere between the old man and Yi Qing Luo, he swallowed back the words that were on the tip of his tongue. "Young lady, in that case, this young lad is indeed you, and you've stimulated his Huangfu blood meridians?" Old man imitated Yi Qing Luo's tone, as he countered with a question. Yi Qing Luo was just about to reply. Then, he threw another sentence that almost made her explode. "Since you've activated this kid's Huangfu bloodline, I'll make the decision. From now on, you'll be this kid's wife. When you return to the Huangfu clan, the 2 of you will get married." These words shocked the profound practitioners of the various great powers so much that they almost jumped up. "Grandpa, do you know what you are saying? Do you know who the girl opposite you is?" If Lord Dizun were to hear this, not to mention the Huangfu clan, even the entire Heaven Realm would be turned upside down by Dizun. However, the old man didn't have the ability to read minds, so he naturally didn't know what everyone was thinking. That's it. Now, the two of you will follow me to the celestial realm. The old man looked as if it was a matter of course. Yi Qing Luo and Pei Xing looked at each other in dismay. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched a few times. Just as she was about to open her mouth to clarify things with the old man, she heard a few anxious voices coming from outside the main hall. Grandpa. Grandpa. Don't mess around. Immediately following that, she saw 3 figures, flying over. In a blink of an eye, they scurried to the old man's side. Chapter 38:54. The woman ran to the old man's side. Grandpa, this won't do, she can't, shut up. The old man's expression turned cold. He put his hands behind his back in a dignified and domineering manner. I've made up my mind. Their marriage has been decided just like that. The young lady's face was pale as she looked anxiously at Yi Qing Luo's direction and stretched out her hand to pull the old man, wanting to say something. The old man impatiently shook off the woman. The other 2 men also followed up. Grandfather, Feng Yan doesn't mean that, you don't know, Yi Qing Luo she is. I don't care what she is. Since she was the woman who had awakened that brat's bloodline, she was the one destined for that brat. I've already decided on this matter. All you need to do is to prepare for their return to the Huangfu clan. The 2 men's faces darkened even further. The woman opened her mouth a few times, but before she could say anything, the old man stopped her. It was Yi Qing Luo who was slightly stunned when she saw the 3 of them appearing. Huangfu. Feng Yan. And, the other 2 young masters of the Huangfu clan? Weren't these 3 the 3 from the Huangfu clan that he had met in the Nirvana realm? It was also the time before Qiao Jin and Yan Xiaoyi confirmed their relationship. They actually came? They seemed to be calling that old man Grandpa? Grandfather? In other words, this old man was Qiao Jin's grandfather? You know them? Hearing Yi Qing Luo calling out his granddaughters and grandsons' names, the old man's brows creased as he looked suspiciously at Huangfu Fengyan and the rest. Huangfu Fengyan's beautiful face revealed a trace of panic. Grandfather. We, to be able to make eldest young master Huangfu, third young master, and fourth young miss call you grandfather, I presume you're the Huangfu clan's patriarch, Huangfu Zhentian, right? After knowing the other party's identity, the sharpness in Yi Qing Luo's eyes had already been restrained. Although he wasn't too sure what had happened between Qiao Jin and the Huangfu clan, he wasn't too sure. He wasn't too sure why Qiao Jin would leave the Huangfu clan. However, the other party was still Qiao Jin's grandfather. As Qiao Jin's brother, she naturally wouldn't be too overbearing. The old man, who was Huangfu Zhentian's white brows rose as the gaze he shot at Yi Qing Luo was filled with a different kind of scrutiny. Looks like you're rather familiar with the people from the Huangfu family. In Huangfu Zhentian's eyes, Yi Qing Luo was just a small cultivator from the earth realm. Their Huangfu clan had always resided in the heaven realm and rarely appeared in the lower realm. How did Yi Qing Luo know Huangfu family's young master and young miss? Furthermore, he could tell. Those 3 people from Huangfu family also recognized Yi Qing Luo. Huangfu Zhentian immediately waved his hand. Since we've known each other for a long time, then it's even easier to decide. Now, we will return to the Huangfu clan and arrange the marriage for you too. The 3 from the Huangfu clan were so shocked that their faces turned pale. Just as he was about to speak, Pei Xing finally reacted, and his eyes widened as he looked at Huangfu Zhentian with a dumbfounded expression. What? You want me to marry Ah Luo? Me? Ah Luo? He repeated in disbelief. Huangfu family's rules are as such. If it's a lady who stimulated your Huangfu bloodline, then, this lady will be your destined person. Huangfu Zhentian spoke in a matter-of-fact tone. Moreover, aren't you very reliant on that lady? I. Pei Xing's face flushed red from Huangfu Zhentian's words. Marry Ah Luo? Chapter 38:55. If the Overlord heard it. His little life would be lost. Pei Xing's mental state was on the verge of collapse. How old are you? You're getting married and you're still shy. This matter has been decided. Do you have any objections? Huangfu Zhentian looked at Pei Xing with disdain and displeasure. As though there wasn't a single part of Pei Xing that caught his eye. Following that, he swept his gaze towards the three people who were surrounding him, who obviously had something to say. Being stared at by Huangfu Zhentian's domineering and dignified gaze. The three of them wanted to speak but didn't dare to. Just as the entire main hall had sunk into a strange atmosphere. A cold and dignified voice brought along an oppressive pressure as it poured over, towards old Master Huangfu's words, I have an objection. At the same time, there was a light panting but a loud and clear voice, I don't agree. Two voices were heard at the same time. It instantly attracted everyone's attention. Huangfu Zhentian felt that the dignified voice was very familiar. But momentarily, he couldn't recall when he had heard it before. On the contrary, it was the three people from the Huangfu family who were beside him who were so scared that they started trembling. Outside the main hall, a tall figure walked into it. The first thing that entered their eyes was that luxurious and pressing purple robe. Following that, it was that oppressive and sharp aura that was emitted from his entire body. When people looked at his absolutely magnificent face, they couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. They were forced by this invisible aura until they didn't dare to look straight at him. He walked over slowly. His brows were like swords, his dark eyes like a lake. As he got closer step by step, he was like an unsheathed sharp blade, emitting an incomparably cold frost. Cold and domineering to the extreme. Huangfu Zhentian's pupils suddenly constricted. His entire mood became stiff and solemn. Overlord. Huangfu Zhentian stared at the man who was walking over. I heard that there's news of Overlord in the Earth realm. I've not expected that Overlord is really here. He paused as his vision shot towards Yiqing Luo and Pei Xing who were stunned on the spot as his voice deepened. I wonder if Overlord has any objection towards me? I have no objection towards you. Dmo Xian had already walked closer and that domineering and imposing aura seemed as though it was going to destroy everything in the surroundings. As he approached, Huangfu Zhentian felt an enormous pressure pressing down on him. Ben Zun has a big objection to your decision. The man's deep and husky voice said word by word. Huangfu Zhentian was shocked by his sudden approach to the point of taking a step back. You. Huangfu Zhentian's brows creased tightly as he stared at Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian took a direct stride, passing Huangfu Zhentian as he walked right in front of Yiqing Luo. You want to ask why, right? Dmo Xian's thin lips curled up frivolously as he suddenly stretched out his hand and wrapped it around Yiqing Luo's slender waist, pressing the young lady into his arms. Then, he glanced sideways. His eyes, which were as deep as a lake, were filled with a cold light. Why do you think so? Huangfu Zhentian was immediately stunned. He looked at Dmo Xian in shock, and looked at the hand which was wrapped around Yiqing Luo's waist. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Was he seeing things? Was he seeing things? Why was the Overlord hugging Yiqing Luo? Dmo Xian's appearance made everyone break out in cold sweat for Huangfu Zhentian. Chapter 3856. Dmo Xian shot a chilly glance over. His thin lips curled up as he spoke with a smile which didn't look like a smile. If you had that kind of thinking, do you think you would be able to live till now? That gaze was so cold that Pei Xing couldn't help but shrink back as his face was filled with terror. Damn! He was so wrong that he wanted to cry all right. The person who insisted on matching him with Yiqing Luo was that old man. What did it have to do with him? One, he was also a person who got shot while lying down all right. Dmo Xian retracted his gaze and when his gaze fell onto Yiqing Luo, the look in his eyes became gentle and affectionate. Yiqing Luo, who was brought into the man's arms, naturally wrapped her arms around the man's waist as she raised her head and looked at Dmo Xian. Are you tired? Are you hurt? Not tired. Dmo Xian bent over and planted a kiss on her forehead as he spoke in a warm voice. Don't worry, there's nothing in this realm which can hurt me. Seeing that his expression wasn't unwell, Yiqing Luo then put on a straight face as her fingers hooked and pinched his waist fiercely. Who asked you to not rest properly, taking the opportunity when I'm asleep to do other things behind my back? Can't you just rest properly? He knew how to love her and take care of her body. Why didn't he know how to love her and take care of her? Hearing the young lady's worried words, Dmo Xian's brows flashed a trace of pampering smile. As he bent his head close to the young lady's face, that pair of black obsidian-like pupils were gradually tainted with a dark and deep luster. It seemed like there was some hidden emotion which needed to be harmonious. He leaned close to her ear as his voice was very hoarse, carrying an obvious meaning. You know how I can rest well. Yiqing Luo. Her face turned black. Damn it, she didn't know. Didn't want to know. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at him as she raised her hand and pushed the man's broad and muscular body away. Scram. The interaction between the two. In everyone's eyes, it was so sweet that it made their teeth ache. Especially when they saw Yiqing Luo had no qualms as she directly pushed Dmo Xian away and arrogantly asked him to scram. They were all stunned. This was probably. You must be the first person who dares to tell Lord Dizun to get lost, right? But looking at Dizun's sweet smile and tenderness, Dizun could not help but laugh. Alright, the reason why the Imperial Madam could be so daring and fearless was because the Overlord doted on her. Once again, the profound practitioners of the various great powers felt it deeply. The love between Dizun and Di Furen. The profound practitioners were aware of this a long time ago. But, only now did Huangfu Jintian seem to have understood something. He was completely dumbfounded. His eyes widened as he stared in shock at the two people hugging in front of him. Overlord, and Yiqing Luo, the two of them. Huangfu Jintian couldn't believe his eyes. He immediately turned his head and glared at the three people behind him. The three from the Huangfu clan were pale, and their bodies were trembling slightly. When he met Huangfu Jintian's gaze, the three of them subconsciously averted their gazes. Huangfu Jintian immediately understood. The three of you already knew? Huangfu Fengyan bit her lower lip as she spoke softly. Grandfather, we wanted to tell you. But you didn't give us a chance to speak. Every time they opened their mouths, they were blocked by Huangfu Jintian. What could they do? They were in despair too. Chapter 38:57. Huangfu trio lowered their heads. They felt resentful from being scolded but didn't dare to voice it out. Huangfu Jintian looked at the surrounding gazes as he felt embarrassed. He cleared his throat and tried his best to maintain a serious expression. Following that, he pointed the spearhead towards Pei Sheng. Stinky brat. Since it has nothing to do with Yiqing. Miss Yi, why didn't you say so earlier? Pei Sheng had a dazed look. After Huangfu Jintian scolded Pei Sheng, he cupped his hands towards Dmo Xian. It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Dmo Xian shot him a glance with a smile which didn't look like a smile as his thin lips curled into a frivolous smile, with a hint of coldness. Huangfu Jintian felt even more embarrassed. Yiqing Luo pushed Dmo Xian as she tidied up her collar and opened her mouth to break the deadlock. Huangfu family's old master. Why did he come all the way to the Earth realm? She paused slightly as she pointed at Pei Sheng. According to Ah Xing's memory, he has a father and mother and he grew up in the Earth realm since young. Old Master's trip here is to grab hold of Ah Xing, talking about this and that, deciding on Ah Xing's marriage. Have you ever thought about Ah Xing's thoughts? Huangfu Jintian's opened mouth slowly closed. The expression on his face slowly turned solemn and grave. Yiqing Luo didn't wait for him to continue speaking. His gaze fell on the slender figure outside the main hall's door. Also, the old master made a mess of matchmaking without saying a word. Not only does my Ah Xian have objections, but I'm afraid that, and Ah Xing also have objections. Following Yiqing Luo's words, everyone looked towards the main door. They saw a delicate lady standing at the door. The ice blue long dress made the lady look lively and lovely. When Pei Sheng saw that person, his dark golden eyes flashed as he suddenly stood up from the ground and looked over in a daze. Little sister. Brother Sheng. The lady pursed her lips as she called out. Following that, she lifted her leg and walked into the main hall. Wasn't this Lady Gu Zishi? Pei Sheng immediately went up and grabbed Gu Zishi's wrist. Why are you here? Gu Zishi raised her head as her beautiful eyes looked at Pei Sheng's face without blinking. She took a deep breath as her pearly white teeth bit her lower lip. I came here with the overlord. Pei Sheng wanted to say something. Huang Fu Jintian suddenly pushed Pei Sheng away and sized Gu Zishi up from head to toe. The more he looked, the deeper his frown became. After that, he took a few glances at Yi Qing Luo's direction. You're the lady who followed the overlord and shouted that she had objections? Huang Fu Jintian naturally heard the lady's voice that rang out together with Dmo Xian earlier. It was only because he saw Di Zun. He didn't care about the objection that the woman shouted. But now, he saw this woman. Then, he saw the atmosphere between the woman and Pei Sheng. Huang Fu Jintian furrowed his brows. Lord Di Zun has an objection because of Miss Yi. Little miss, what about you? Gu Zishi's eyes flashed when she was called out. Under the pressure of Huang Fu Jintian's aura, even her delicate body was slightly trembling. However, when she glanced at Pei Sheng, she felt a chill run down her spine. However, she stubbornly raised her head and her beautiful eyes met Huang Fu Jintian's. It's because of Brother Sheng. Her crisp voice paused after every word, without the slightest hesitation. Her voice was like thunder as it landed heavily on Pei Sheng's heart. It was like a huge hammer, smashing down heavily. In his heart, he roughly guessed something. His entire person instantly became nervous. His heartbeat suddenly sped up. Just at this moment. Chapter 38:58. Pei Sheng's heart skipped a beat. Little sister, Gu Zishi used her gaze to stop him from saying what he wanted to say. I don't want to wait anymore. Gu Zishi looked at Pei Sheng and said softly, Pei Sheng, I really don't want to call you Brother Sheng anymore, and I don't want to hear you call me little sister. Pei Sheng's throat tightened. Looking at Gu Zishi's determined eyes, he wanted to escape for a moment. However, his hands were tightly wrapped by Gu Zishi's hands. The woman's unique softness made it impossible for him to escape. Gu Zishi's eyes were firm, and she looked at him without blinking. Pei Sheng, I said. I don't want to escape anymore. Her slender fingers gently held his hand and placed it on her heart. The woman's soft touch made Pei Sheng so shocked that he wanted to withdraw his hand. However, Gu Zishi held him firmly. His face turned red instantly. Gu Zishi smiled slightly, and her beautiful eyes were filled with tenderness. Do you feel it? My heart is beating faster because of you. This sentence was almost no different from the words, I like you. It was completely clear that she expressed her feelings to Pei Sheng. Pei Sheng's pupils kept enlarging. After Gu Zishi's words struck him in the heart, his face flushed red, as though it was about to burst into flames. His lips trembled, and he stammered, little sister, you. He was nervous and excited. It made him feel as if there were colorful fireworks blooming in his mind. It made him unable to think about anything else. However, Gu Zishi grabbed his collar with her hand. She suddenly pulled him with both hands. Pei Sheng leaned forward. The distance between him and her was shortened. Pei Sheng, last time in the soul-devouring formation, I made it very clear that I don't want to be your little sister. The distance between him and her was very close. When Gu Zishi spoke, Pei Sheng could feel the woman's orchid fragrance. His face turned even redder. Even the muscles in his body were tense and excited. Especially his heart, which was beating wildly. He couldn't control it at all. Gu Zishi's voice was sonorous and firm as she continued, I only have one question for you. Are you willing to give the two of us a chance to be together? That voice was filled with determination and expectation. Pei Sheng's heart thumped fiercely. He immediately looked at Gu Zishi. When he met Gu Zishi's beautiful eyes that were as bright as the stars and filled with determination, a certain place in his heart seemed to have been ruthlessly struck by something. Z11, his voice was hoarse as he subconsciously spat out these two words. There seemed to be something in his heart urging him to do something. Gu Zishi's beautiful eyes lit up. The corners of their mouths lifted into a smile. However, just as Pei Sheng was about to speak, an angry voice broke the sweet confession scene. What are you doing? A young lady was courting in front of so many people. Don't you have any shame? Huangfu Zhentian reached out, grabbed Pei Sheng's collar, and pulled him to his side. Then he looked at Gu Zishi with even more disgust and displeasure. Little girl, don't you know how to be reserved at all? Let me tell you, I will never agree to the thing between you and this kid. Chapter 38:59. Whereas Gu Zishi was originally grabbing onto Pei Sheng tightly and all her strength was pressing onto him, Pei Sheng left. She instantly lost all her strength as her body suddenly fell forward. Zishi. Pei Sheng anxiously wanted to rush over to support Gu Zishi, but his wrist was held tightly by Huangfu Zhentian. Luckily Yi Qing Luo moved swiftly in time as she shifted to Gu Zishi's side and caught her. Seeing Yi Qing Luo supporting Gu Zishi in time, Pei Sheng heaved a sigh of relief. He angrily shook off Huangfu Zhentian's hand which was holding onto him. Who are you to me? This is between me and Zishi, what has it got to do with you? You're my Huangfu family's member. Tell me, what has it got to do with me? Huangfu Zhentian held onto his hand tightly. Pei Sheng's eyes turned red from anger. My surname is Pei, my father's surname is also Pei. I grew up in the Earth realm since young and can't get in touch with your Huangfu family. Huangfu Zhentian's large palm locked onto his shoulder as he forced him to look at him in the eye. After that, he said word by word, but, your mother's surname is Huangfu. The anger in Pei Sheng's eyes suddenly froze. His struggling movements also stopped. His mother, Huangfu? Pei Sheng's brows creased tightly as he was unable to digest Huangfu Zhentian's words. Huangfu Zhentian looked at him. This pair of eyes of yours is the best proof. Although it's not pure golden eyes, but it's still my Huangfu family's bloodline. Pei Sheng shook his head as he struggled free from Huangfu Zhentian's hand in disbelief. Even if my mother's surname is Huangfu, that doesn't mean that I'm related to your Huangfu family. For so many years, even when my mother passed away, she didn't appear. On what basis do you make me believe you? Your mother. Huangfu Zhentian's expression sunk slightly as an undetectable sorrow flashed past his eyes, but very quickly, it dissipated in the imposing manner. No matter what, the fact that your Huangfu family's bloodline cannot be erased. Since you've already stimulated the Huangfu bloodline, then you must follow me back to Huangfu family. As for these messy relationships in the Earth realm, break it off. He shot a meaningful glance towards Gu Zishi's direction. Pei Sheng was so shocked by this series of words that his head was about to explode. A moment ago. Furthermore, he had lived with her for so many years. Even though they were brother and sister, he had fallen in love with her, and their hearts were interlinked. He was excited and excited. The next moment, it was like throwing down a heavy bomb. His heart felt heavy, and he found it hard to breathe. He was unable to believe what Huangfu Zhentian said. But his rationality told him otherwise. To be able to make the dignified Huangfu family patriarch personally come from the heaven realm. They had definitely confirmed his identity. It couldn't be faked. However, he did not want to admit it. He didn't want to have anything to do with the Huangfu family. After so many years of cynicism and mockery, he had no choice but to accept it. All he wanted to do was protect his father's treasure assembly exchange hall, and live a good life with the people he cared about. Tisk, suddenly, a mocking sneer rang out clearly in the main hall. Following that, he saw Yi Qing Luo holding on to Gu Zishi as she walked towards Pei Sheng. Her steps were light and her back was straight. Between her long and narrow eyes, there was a cold light that seemed to be smiling yet not smiling. The way he looked at Huangfu Zhentian seemed to be mocking something. Very provocative. Huangfu Zhentian's face immediately turned black. Chapter 3860. Yiqing Luo's tone was obviously heavy. Huangfu Zhentian naturally understood the meaning in her words. His expression sunk slightly as he took a look at Yiqing Luo. This question wasn't easy to answer. Yiqing Luo's attitude was obviously to stand up for Gu Zishi. If he really said that he didn't fancy Gu Zishi, that would be indirectly expressing that he didn't fancy the person whom the Overlord's wife had taken a fancy to. That meant he didn't fancy the Overlord's wife. But if he really agreed, he had taken a fancy to Gu Zishi. Could it be that he really let this stinky brat and Gu Zishi be together? Huangfu Zhentian was in a difficult position. Behind him, Huangfu Fengyan looked at Huangfu Zhentian's expression as her eyes flickered slightly. Following that, she walked over to Huangfu Zhentian's side as she looked at Yiqing Luo and explained in a warm and polite voice, "Miss Yi, grandfather doesn't mean that. But according to our Huangfu family's rules, like this, cousin brother, as a branch descendant of Huangfu family. Because of a woman, if his Huangfu bloodline is stimulated, then this woman will be the destined person of this branch descendant." There was such a saying. That Xiao Jin and Yan Xiao Yi didn't seem to have any problems with Huangfu bloodline or the destined person. As though he saw through Yiqing Luo's thoughts. Huangfu family's eldest young master Huangfu Dongyu also explained, because in cousin Pei Xing's body, there is half an ordinary person's blood. Generally speaking, it's very difficult to stimulate his Huangfu bloodline. Huangfu family's third young master Huangfu Qi Fei naturally didn't want to fall behind and let the both of them snatch the limelight in front of his grandfather as he immediately continued, for cousin Pei Sheng's innate talent and bloodline, it's possible that he will never be able to stimulate his Huangfu bloodline in his entire life. And to be able to stimulate this potential, it's because he has an extremely strong will, wanting to protect someone's will. The three siblings looked at each other. Then Huangfu Fengyan continued, so Huangfu family would set such a rule since ancient times. There were three people's explanations, which helped Huangfu Zhentian out of the predicament. Huangfu Zhentian's grave expression had just eased up. Soon after, a cold and indifferent voice rang out, "So, you still have your eyes on this lord's woman?" This voice was heard. The entire main hall fell into a deathly silence. The faces of the three Huangfu siblings turned deathly pale. Of course not. Huangfu Fengyan resisted the pressure and said, "Miss Yi and Dizun's relationship is as deep as the ocean. We just that you can't accept my Zishi?" Yiqing Luo's cold voice interrupted Huangfu Fengyan's words. She arched a disdainful smile and raised her eyes. "Who told you that I was the one who awakened Pei Xing's bloodline?" This is cousin Pei Xing himself." Huangfu Fengyan was pressured by this imposing aura to the point that she found it hard to breathe. A trace of jealousy flashed in the depths of her eyes. How long had it been since they last met? Why, Yiqing Luo's ability and her imposing manner had become even more threatening? "I didn't." Pei Xing's eyes immediately widened as he shook his head fiercely towards Dmo Xian's direction. "I don't know them. How could I tell them this?" It's you." Huangfu Fengyan's face was pale as she carefully looked at Huangfu Zhentian. She anxiously pushed the blame onto Pei Xing. Looking at Huangfu Fengyan's expression, how would Huangfu Zhentian still not understand? Chapter 3861. That kid's Huangfu blood meridian is not important. Huangfu Zhentian interrupted Huangfu Fengyan's words as he spoke in a deep voice. "My motive is to bring the Huangfu family's bloodline back to Huangfu family." Yiqing Luo couldn't help but burst out laughing when she heard that. She squinted her eyes as she shot a glance at Pei Xing's direction. Pei Xing's expression was extremely ugly as his eyes sunk and he clenched his fists tightly as his muscles tensed up. Apparently, he was extremely angry. and his heart was surging with raging waves. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as her gaze shifted towards Huangfu Zhentian calmly. Her pink lips curled upwards with some traces of ridicule. As though she was provoking him. Huangfu Zhentian's white brows creased into a bundle. But when he saw that tall and slender figure behind Yiqing Luo, he forcefully suppressed the whirlpool in his eyes. Yiqing Luo crossed her arms as she gave a smile which was indeed asking for a beating. Old Master Huangfu's words are wrong. According to the rules passed down by your Huangfu family's ancestors, I feel that the matter of who stimulated Pei Xing's potential is extremely important. When she said that, it instantly caused the various powerhouses' cultivators to draw in a cold breath. All of them were guessing. What was Yiqing Luo's intention? Could it be that she really had some thoughts about Pei Xing? Did she really want to become Pei Xing's destined person? Had she neglected? The overlord was still by the side? Not only the surrounding cultivators were shocked. Even Huangfu Zhentian frowned slightly because of Yiqing Luo's words. Of course, he didn't feel that Yiqing Luo wanted to become Pei Xing's destined person, which was why she didn't let this matter go. Could it be that she wanted to? Huangfu Zhentian's astute eyes flickered as he glanced at Gu Zixi direction. As expected, the next moment, he heard the young lady's chilly voice, because the person who stimulated Pei Xing's potential isn't me, but my Zixi. Huangfu Zhentian's eyes flashed past a sliver of understanding. He gave a cold snort in disdain. It was very soft, but Yiqing Luo, who was standing nearby, could clearly hear Huangfu Zhentian's cold snort. She could also clearly see the disdain in his eyes. It was just a glance. Yiqing Luo could tell what he was thinking. The corners of Zhang Xian's lips curled up into a mocking smile. You can ask Pei Xing whether it's true or not. As the person involved, he should know better than anyone else. The topic was once again thrown to Pei Xing. Pei Xing's eyes narrowed, and his expression was cold. There wasn't a trace of respect in his eyes when he looked at Huangfu Zhentian. No matter who activated it, it has nothing to do with you. I, Pei Xing, am surnamed Pei, and I don't know your so-called Huangfu clan. After saying that, he raised his wrist. He stared unblinkingly at his wrist, at the hand that was covered with wrinkles. Let go. It was obvious that Pei Xing's emotions were very unstable at the moment. Stinking kid. Huangfu Zhentian was stunned by Pei Xing's gaze, and his white brows knit together tightly as he wanted to berate Pei Xing. But in the next instant, a slight gust of wind attacked. Then, his hand that was clasping Pei Xing's wrist was released by a gentle force. Huangfu Zhentian saw the young girl's bright and beautiful figure squeezing into the crowd. He loosened his grip on Pei Xing. Pei Xing was pushed away by the girl. The young girl's slender figure blocked in front of Pei Xing. She looked at Huangfu Zhentian indifferently with a pair of cold and enchanting eyes. Huangfu Zhentian had always been in a high position. He had almost never met with such an attitude. Now he was being targeted time and time again by a young lady. Chapter 3862. Yiqing Luo naturally felt the fury in Huangfu Zhentian's eyes when he looked at her. She didn't really care. She had her own man as her backer. Even if Huangfu Zhentian was truly enraged, she wasn't worried that it would blow up. After all, her family's Xian's reputation was still resounding. Yes, that's right, she's a bully. Was she stupid? Why wouldn't he hug a thigh? Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose as she met Huangfu Zhentian's eyes without any fear as she smiled sweetly. He knows who was the one who stimulated his potential, and I believe you all have a way to verify it. As for the few of you from the Huangfu family, you came all the way to the Earth domain, and even old Master Huangfu came personally. This indeed shows your sincerity. However, how can old Master be sure that Pei Xing really wants to go back with you? She paused for a moment, then sneered. You said that you want to bring Pei Xing back to the Huangfu family. Does that mean that Pei Xing has to give up everything that he has fought for in the land and go back with you? Why? Yiqing Luo's words were impolite and straightforward. Huangfu Jintian's face darkened with a swoosh. Yi Qing Luo gave a ridiculing laugh as she continued, just based on the fact that you think he's a collateral bloodline of the Huangfu family? Just because you think he activated the Huangfu bloodline? So he has to return to the Huangfu clan? Miss Yi. Huangfu Dongyu shouted sternly with a gloomy face, don't think that you can be so unscrupulous just because you have the support of His Majesty. This is the Huangfu family's old master after all. Be more polite with your words. He stood up, his eyes filled with anger. The way he looked at Yi Qing Luo was as though he was looking at an enemy. When Yi Qing Luo heard that, she couldn't help but let out a ha sound as her eyes were filled with ridicule. You should be glad that you're from the Huangfu family, otherwise. I'll just rely on my Xian to back me up, not even bothering about you, do you understand? Yi Qing Luo. Huangfu Fengyan was unable to restrain her anger as she totally didn't use her brain as she bellowed out Yi Qing Luo's full name from her throat. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled upwards as she gave an unattainable smile. That was how he pretended to be. If you have the guts, come and bite me. Ha! Yi Qing Luo's eyes were filled with disdain and ridicule, as though it was pricked by needles, pricking Huangfu Fengyan's eyes. Huangfu Fengyan was so angry that her entire body was trembling. Her demonic eyes, one gold and one ink, flashed with anger and jealousy. She bared her teeth and was just about to open her mouth to rebuke Yi Qing Luo. However, it was forcefully suppressed by Huangfu Jintian's domineering voice. Miss Yi, you seem to have a lot of opinions about our Huangfu clan? Snatching someone from me just because of a disagreement, why can't I have any opinions? Yi Qing Luo chuckled as she retorted. Huangfu Jintian placed his hands behind his back, and his aura had calmed down. However, the domineering dignity of a superior was still there. He didn't continue to tangle with Yi Qing Luo, but turned his sight towards Pei Sheng. Lad, you're not willing to follow us back to Huangfu family? Pei Sheng looked at Huangfu Jintian. The emotions in his eyes were cold and complicated. Hiding too many emotions. When he heard Huangfu Jintian's question, Pei Sheng's fists suddenly clenched tightly as the veins on his forehead popped out. He was practically gritting his teeth as he squeezed out word by word from the slits of his teeth, I don't want. Chapter 3863. Pei Sheng, in the Earth Realm, you'll forever be a nobody but. In the Huangfu family can give you the best resources and preferential treatment, allowing your ability to advance by leaps and bounds. Huangfu Jintian's voice was steady and calm. As though he was tempting something. To ordinary people, this was indeed a temptation. In this era where the strong were revered and ability was supreme. To be able to obtain sufficient resources to advance by leaps and bounds. This was the target which all cultivators yearned for. No one was willing to be under others. But Huangfu Jintian's temptation totally didn't make Pei Sheng's expression change. He was unmoved as he continued his unfinished words, I'm not willing. There wasn't even a hint of hesitation in his tone. Huangfu Jintian's expression sunk instantly. Do you know what you're rejecting? I'm not interested. Pei Sheng's eyes sparkled with dark golden light as a hurricane surged. I'm doing very well in the Earth Realm. Since you've never appeared for the past 19 years, then. I don't need you in the future. His voice was tense as though he was suppressing something. That look of a trapped beast made one's heart palpitate. Yi Qing Luo frowned as she was just about to open her mouth to pacify Pei Sheng's agitated emotions. The warm and soft little hand which was holding onto her suddenly withdrew from her palm. Gu Zixi had already jogged over and hugged Pei Sheng from behind. The lady's delicate fragrance and the warmth of her hands made the raging emotions in Pei Sheng's body gradually calm down. His tightly clenched fist slowly loosened as it covered the back of the lady's hand. His emotions had stabilized. The hurricane surging in his eyes had also stopped. He looked towards Huangfu Jintian again. His emotions were extremely indifferent. Please return. Huangfu Jintian's brows creased tightly. His eyes sparkled with shrewd glint as he sized up the two who were hugging each other. In his heart, he seemed to be thinking about something. When Huangfu Fengyan saw this, she silently guessed Huangfu Jintian's thoughts as she spoke out. Pei Sheng, this is your only chance. What can you do in the Earth realm? Even if you feel that it's wrong for the Huangfu family to ignore you for so many years. But now, Grandpa has come to pick you up personally. What are you dissatisfied with? Every single word of his was mocking Pei Sheng for being insensible. He secretly mocked Pei Sheng for taking advantage of him. Without waiting for Pei Sheng to speak, Huangfu Fengyan continued, or are you saying that you can't bear to part with that woman? For a woman like her to confess her love to a man in public and throw herself into his embrace without any sense of propriety, justice, and honor, such a woman isn't worthy of our Huangfu clan. Pei Sheng didn't even bat an eyelid at Huangfu Fengyan's previous sentence. However, when Huangfu Fengyan spoke her next sentence, Huang Yu's eyes widened. Pei Sheng's gaze flickered with coldness as she swiftly shot towards Huangfu Fengyan. Compared to a barbaric, rude, arrogant, despotic, and malicious woman like you, Zishi is 1,000 times better than you. You! Huangfu Fengyan's face twisted. He actually dared to compare that kind of woman with her? He even dared to humiliate her? Third Miss Huangfu's words are really laughable. Yi Qing Luo scoffed lightly as she spoke out in ridicule. My Zishi is merely bravely expressing her feelings, pouring out her love to the man whom she likes and also likes her. What's wrong with that? Chapter 38-64. This sentence made Huangfu Fengyan so angry that her face turned red, and her eyes turned black. Her face was ferocious, and her demonic eyes flickered with resentment. Just as she was about to fight back in exasperation, Huangfu Jintian's steady voice interrupted Huangfu Fengyan's words. Pei Sheng, don't you want to know about your mother? Pei Sheng suddenly raised his head and stared fixedly at Huangfu Jintian. Huangfu Jintian raised his white brows, looked at Pei Sheng again, and repeated, come back to the Huangfu clan with me, and I will tell you everything about your mother. Also, why you're in the Earth domain, and the reason why we haven't looked for you for many years. I can tell you everything. Then, his gaze faintly glanced at Gu Zishi. Also, if you really like that woman, I agree to let you bring her back to the Huangfu clan. Pei Sheng pursed his lips tightly, and his face was dark, but he didn't speak. But his pair of ink-like eyes revealed the emotions in the depths of his heart. Pei Sheng, in this world, only the people of our Huangfu clan are your family. Could it be that you're really willing to part ways with us when you know you still have a family member alive? Huangfu Jintian seemed to understand Pei Sheng's weakness. He began to use kinship to persuade Pei Sheng. Every single word was like a sharp blade stabbing into Pei Sheng's heart. His muscles tightened even more. On his handsome face, the veins on his forehead seemed as if they were about to burst out. The hand that pressed on the back of Gu Zishi's hand also unconsciously increased the strength. The woman's fair and delicate little hand was pinched until it turned red. But Gu Zishi didn't struggle, and let him pinch her hand. Her other hand gently wrapped around his waist, and her voice was gentle and full of firmness. Pei Sheng, no matter where you go, I will follow you, so, don't worry about me, just follow what you think in your heart. It had to be said that these 9 years of getting along made them the people who understood each other the best. Gu Zishi knew the deepest thoughts in Pei Sheng's heart. Indeed, Huangfu Jintian used kinship correctly. He used Pei Sheng's mother to make Pei Sheng unable to resist. But because of this, Pei Sheng's disgust towards Huangfu Jintian grew even deeper. The hatred in his heart grew even more intense. Because, old Master Huangfu. The girl's cold voice was filled with mockery. Gu Zishi immediately raised her head to look at Yi Qing Luo. A pair of beautiful eyes flickered slightly. There were many things that she could not say on behalf of Pei Sheng. Because Huangfu Jintian was Pei Sheng's senior. She wanted to be with Pei Sheng. There were many things that had to be considered. But Yi Qing Luo was different. Yi Qing Luo had the overlord and had no other relations with the Huangfu family. Many words Yi Qing Luo could say. As expected, at the next instance, he heard Yi Qing Luo continuing, Huangfu family's people, have always loved to use this kind of method to threaten this junior. Yi Qing Luo's expression was solemn and cold. There wasn't even a hint of a smile on his face. His eyes were filled with mockery and disdain. This was after the appearance of Huang Fuzhentian. This was the first time Yi Qing Luo's emotions had fluctuated so much. Yi Qing Luo's interruption made Huang Fuzhentian frown. A pair of astute eyes looked at Yi Qing Luo unhappily. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.